Okay, welcome everybody to this edition where we speak to real business owners that are battling through and actually starting to thrive in this climate that we're in at the moment. So in this edition, we're speaking to Graham Baker of Graham Baker Photography. Welcome, Graham.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. So do you want to just give us a quick intro, mate, as to what you do and what you do at Graham Baker Photography at this moment?
Yep, I'll keep it nice and simple and short. Basically, I am a photographer and videographer as well, but mainly photography. And I have two streams to my business, which I have. One side is the weddings, and I keep that as a separate business, separate website and everything. And on the other side, I have it was portraits, but it's more specifically now towards branding and business photography. So that's things like headshots, personal branding, some product stuff, and that kind of work, really. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, who are your main clients? Are they more business to business now, or is it, how has that changed?
I think certainly. Well, I'm going back a little bit, but last year the wedding season for me this year, and we'll come on to a little bit of that in a bit, but yeah, it was a bit light on the ground, and that was my own fault because I was kind of building up the business side anyway. Okay. I started doing a bit more networking, and I was really enjoying that side of it, the business to business stuff. I got really into working with people and helping with their brands and stuff, so that was really good fun. And then obviously lockdown happened and literally blew all my weddings out of the water. So I literally yesterday, my last wedding that I was pinning my hopes on for that was left, I got the call saying no, they're going to postpone till next year as well now. So right. Okay. No weddings at all this year. So my business stuff though, that was okay, but again during the lockdown period, it's been zero.
Right. Okay. So I mean, there's been the effect has been vastly different across industries, and obviously your industry is one of them that has, on the whole been hit pretty big, right? So you've had to make some big changes. So we'll come to some of those in a bit. Yeah. So, I mean, but when was it really, when was the first time that you actually sat there and thought, you know what, this looks like it's going to have some effects on my business. I'm going to have to start looking at some alternatives or options around what I need to do and how to change things up.
I think there was, it's going to sound strange, but I used to be a police officer. So okay. The whole kind of chaos is actually something that I'm okay with. I'm a little bit more comfortable in that. So that first week when it all started coming up and it was all started happening, I was actually quite comfortable in the situation. I knew it would bite me with cash flow and all the rest of it. Yeah. So already at that stage, I was thinking, right, well, what can I do? What else can I do? I can't, being a photographer, I generally have to be in the same company to be able to take their photographs. Yeah. And so I had to start thinking outside of the box about what I could do, what skills I could bring to the table and leverage that going forward.
And did you find yourself going through, so when I've worked with my clients a lot of the time, there's a real roller coaster of emotions. There's a lot of people that have started on, a lot of clients went into denial and a lot of business owners went into denial. Then they went into like a bit of a chaotic stage and a bit of a confused stage. And then they went into maybe becoming quite angry about the whole situation, right? And then you start to come out the other side. Hopefully business owners have come out the other side. Then they start to look at what the other opportunities and start to actually say, right, well, I've got to do something here. So did you go through a roller coaster of emotions or?
Probably less so. Right. Again, it was back to that. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was cash. Yeah. I was a little bit worried about how things would pan out over time. So but I think again, I was quite lucky in the sense that I had reserves. Right. I think it's one of those things that I've always had. It's always had some reserves in place, not because I expected anything like this to happen, but it was always there. So that's kind of got me through. Unfortunately, due to my financial situation in the previous few years, I didn't actually qualify for any of the grants anyway. Right. So I was kind of left to my own devices. So I think that actually sort of gave me the motivation, if you like, to actually think, crikey, I've got to do something about it, because if I don't, I'm going to have to go and work in Tesco's or something.
Well, we all need a catalyst, right?
Yeah, I think it was. I think there was that initial, I suppose it wasn't a massive shock because obviously we could see it coming, building up over that sort of period just before.
Yeah.
But it was very much more, I was worried about the money. It wasn't so much about anything else. It was just having that cash flow coming into the bank just to pay the bills. As it happens, I think that because I had that reserve there, it gave me a little bit more of a comfort blanket. So it wasn't like I was panicking big time. It was like, right, this is a worry. I need to think about what I can do to sustain this. So,
okay, cool. And so what was the biggest changes for you? You know, what was the biggest challenge for you when you saw that coming? I know obviously you've mentioned a couple of, things, areas that you had to look at and concentrate on there. But what was the biggest challenge in your mind of how you were going to change what you were currently doing?
That's a tough question. I think it was balancing everything with family life, because obviously the kids were at home. My wife is a counsellor, so she was struggling to work out how she was going to see her clients.
Yeah.
And just the mood of clients, because it was all very well me saying, yes, I can still provide a service, but it was whether they're going to actually be still willing to do that because of their own confusion or their own angle, their own sort of, what are they going to have to do? Because they're all going to be struggling as well. And they are struggling for their own cash flows and stuff. So it kind of puts everything on hold. So I found that difficult to sort of deal with initially, but then I just had to think, right, I've got to do something. And, I did see a lot of people running for the hills and sticking their head in the sand.
Yeah.
And that's not me. That's not my makeup. I think I just have to do something. And if I can't expect any help from the government or anybody else, then I've got to help myself. And that was my attitude. And I think that was a key bit for me to actually get me moving, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I met you in person the first time, I think at one of my workshops or one of the workshops, right? And straight away, your attitude of just, very upbeat, very quite infectious in the way of like, the passion that you've got for your business and that. So I can totally understand how you probably reacted in a more positive way. But like you said, one of the biggest challenges is all of your clients, your suppliers, people like that maybe they haven't, you've got no control over that, of how they're reacting. So, I can totally relate to that. So how did you get through to, potential clients, existing clients? What did you do to communicate? Did you have to change that in any way or up it?
I mean, the first thing was to reassure that any existing bookings or clients that I had, that I was still there for them.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of communication, contact, especially with the wedding clients, because they were seeing so much. It's not just the photographer; they've got the venues to worry about, all of those things. And one client had a lot of family in abroad, so there was all issues. So I just did everything that I could to sort of stay in contact with them, emailing them, phoning them up, and just sort of being there for them. Right. And the same with the business clients. I mean, I'd done a photo shoot prior to the lockdown for one particular client, and it was an osteopath. And, that business, again, very hands-on. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of a story attached to it, but this poor osteopath was stuck in another country trying to get back to the UK through all the lockdown stuff. Finally gets back to no work. So my attitude was, well, I'm in a good place mentally. Yeah. What can I do to help out my client and now my friend? What can I do? So it sort of started around that, where I just sort of said, well, let's create some video. Let's share your message to your clients to say, look, I am still here. I am still working hard behind the scenes. I can help you over the phone. I can do video. I can do all of these things. So that's how that kind of started.
Fantastic. And that's absolutely key, isn't it? And I say to a lot of business owners at the moment, it's about, whatever you're doing now is how you're going to be remembered, right? When you come out of this, because, if you like what you've just done there, you've dived in, you've helped, you've still gone ahead, you've pushed on, you've helped clients that maybe, weren't in a position to maybe work with you because either whether their head wasn't in the right place financially or whatever it is. But, the point is, and it's not an ulterior motive, but rightly so, when we come out of this, I really hope that business owners look around within the community and recognise who did help them through these times. you know.
It started as well. I'll come on to that in a minute,
Right.
but I think that my attitude has, and it was stuff that you talked about when you did that workshop. It was
Right.
very much about aligning sort of what I do with a sense of purpose. And my sense of purpose is that, you know, the more people that I can help, the better it is for all of us. And I know it sounds really cheesy and corny, but I have a line that I say a lot at the moment, which is a rising tide lifts all the boats in the harbour. Now, I can't remember who said that or where it came from.
Like it, yeah.
General consensus, if I can help contribute towards the greater good, if you like, I know it sounds cheesy, but that was my attitude. And yeah, it comes back. What goes around comes around, I think.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, I'm always one of those that goes, "Oh, you know, I don't want to sound tacky. I don't want to sound cheesy when I say certain things like that." But when you truly believe it, it isn't tacky or cheesy. It's when people say it and they don't believe it, that's when it comes across that way. And you know, like I said, from meeting you, I know that you believe that, right? And that's how you run your business in your life. So, so let's move on to a few of the other. So we've talked, you know, really briefly about some of the challenges and that, and they'll come up again, but. You know, what's been like a major, what stands out for you during these last sort of 3 months? What's been like a real major win for you? What's, you know, and it can be anything, financially, time, mindset, whatever that is, you know, what stands out as a real win?
My network, without a doubt. I think obviously a lot of changing in, you know, we couldn't go to networking meetings and things like that because of obviously the restrictions, but obviously the technology has been able for us to continue being in contact, and being a sort of one-man band, sole trader, it's a lonely place. So still maintaining those connections with people and like-minded people was probably key to where I am. And also my mindset, that the fact that we could all meet up and still have a bit of banter online was probably what really helped with a lot of people, not just me, a lot of people's mindsets about.
I totally agree. And has that increased for you, or has it stayed the same? Have you, like, so, you know, I'm not asking you to name the groups and that necessarily, but have you stayed in the same groups? Have you increased certain groups, or, you know, if some just dropped off and you found other ones that have now working better virtually?
Yeah, I think a mixture of that. I think the main group that I was going to has definitely leveraged very well compared to some others. And I went off and joined a couple of other networking groups, and they were struggling to get the whole head around the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't like some of the directions they were going in, but I just found, so I guess in a way, I would still like to meet up and have a breakfast and have a good natter and catch up with people. I like to shake hands with people. I like the contact.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the virtual stuff has been really beneficial because it balances. It's the whole, I'm saving money on what I'm not spending on going down to different locations. I'm saving on fuel. You know, in terms of actually seeing more people on a one-to-one basis, it's a lot easier to arrange because, again, before it was, right, let's meet up for a coffee, and then that takes a big chunk of your time out. With things like virtually, it's bang, I can have 2 or 3 throughout the day, and it made hardly any impact at all. So I think from that, and being able to develop those connections and those networks and contributing to them, helping them out, helping people stay visible as well, I was contributing to that rising tide again. So network, I think in the short answer, networking has really been impactful and positive for me.
Yeah, and I can see that as well. And like for me, you know, I work in quite a tight community and quite a tight network of businesses that I put in touch with each other and things like that. And you know, and that has expanded even in this time, because like you said, it is easier. You know, even this interview now, right? We'd have, like you said, one of us would have had to drive, or we probably would have said, you know what, let's go to the studio that I used to use and stuff like that, right? And we'd have sat there, or come to you because you've got all the gear, right? So, you know, and that would have taken an hour, and then we'd have set it up, and then we'd have sat around talking afterwards. Whereas now, you know, it can be a lot punchier. So I'm quite interested to see where you think you're going to, you know, look, we all know that the easing of lockdown is going to be very gradual. We may even have certain setbacks along the way. But how do you sort of see your business after lockdown a little bit, in a way, we've jumped ahead a little bit, but after lockdown, because of the technology, I believe that the technology has been brought forward probably between 2 or 5 years. Right, I think everybody's progressed. Just before we came on here, I mentioned that my 93-year-old nan uses FaceTime. Right, I mean that's amazing. She doesn't use it brilliantly, but she uses it. Right, and that's phenomenal. So anyone who's got an excuse of saying I don't do tech, it just doesn't wash with me.
So right, but bring out nan.
Yeah, exactly. So, but where do you think you're going to use a combination? Like you said, you already like to shake someone's hand, be it you're a very personable person, right, individual, and do you think there's going to be a mix, or do you think everyone's going to flick straight back into this networking in face-to-face very easily, or continue the way we are virtually?
I think it'll be a mix, and I'm hopeful for a mix, because I still think we're human beings. We need contact. We need that face-to-face. It is harder to read the situation when you're online. It is different. I'm not saying it's any worse or better or anything like that. I'm just saying it's different. And like anything that's different, it can take a bit of time to get used to it. I think there's some psychological things as well about how that it's more tiring to actually talk onto a screen. And there's still things that aren't quite right.
Zoom fatigue now, right?
Yeah, zoomed out, I think, is probably a new term in the dictionary, isn't it?
Brilliant.
But it's that. I think that definitely for efficiency wise and getting to reach out to people a lot quicker. I mean, there was a post that somebody copied me on today, and it was very much on that same question about where do you see it happening? And I've kind of lost my train of thought, but it was, where, do you want a combination of it? And I think, I still think that my network, as I said earlier, has expanded very well, and I've been able to contact with a lot of people, but I still want that face-to-face contact as well. It's going to be a balance, and I think that's where it should go, because you can reach more people quickly, but then the slow time stuff will happen. I mean, I'm not saying that before that I wouldn't have eventually have met all these people, because I probably would have done, but it would have taken a hell of a lot longer.
Yeah, I think what is clear is that the phone call is pretty much dead, right? Because everybody now just says quick Zoom call, quick go-to, whatever it is, right? Quick Teams. Nobody says I'll give you a phone call anymore, right? So
no, I had one the other day. So
you caveman.
Yeah, well, it wasn't me. It threw me a little bit, because somebody booked to have a chat with me, and it automatically creates the Zoom call for me. So I literally it pings up on the booking system. You've got a call. So I've gone on there and I've locked it up, and I thought, nobody's actually said whether we're gonna. So I picked up the phone and rang the person in the end, and they genuinely didn't realise that it was on Zoom. So that was
fantastic.
You still have to use it occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not quite finished yet, but yeah. So I mean, looking forward, actually, before we do that, you've already talked about the networking. What other kind of marketing have you had to change? Because, we all know that maybe what we were doing before, I often say to people that whatever you thought 2020 was going to look like, it's totally different, right? Yeah. None of us saw this coming, certainly not on this level, even if we were prepared slightly for something like it, right? Yep. So, marketing, we all know there's certain elements of marketing that we know the stats, 7, 8 out of 10 market strategies don't work, things like that. So in this market and in this climate as well, what have you had to do to adapt your marketing to reach that bigger audience and to change up what you were doing originally pre-COVID?
It's I'm very much more about trying to build connection. The idea of selling, this is me, I'm a photographer, here's my great pictures, and I don't think that's the way. I think it's very much about building a relationship with people and sort of a problem-solving kind of approach to it, rather than the sort of sell. I think the sell tactics of the 80s and 90s are kind of dead in this situation. You can't do that. People crave that connection because of their lockdown situation. Yeah. So if you are helping people, you are approachable, you are building relationships in the first instance, I think that's quite from my perspective and what I've seen and what I've experienced, certainly in the last week as well, I've seen it come back in, I'm looking good at the moment.
Good. So that sort of brings us more onto the future a bit. So where do you see, Graham Baker Photography going after this? Where do you see these next 6 months? Because there's a whole divide in what people's attitude is towards these next 6 months. And it's really, it's quite interesting to see the different mindsets as to what they see happening.
It's a difficult one to predict because there's so much changing on a daily, weekly basis. What's happening. You see. I don't actually watch a great deal of the news at all. In fact, I stopped consciously a few years ago. So I know what's going on. I pick up what's going on in the world, but I don't let it drag me down or draw me into it. But I know things are changing very quickly, so it's difficult to predict exactly. But I think I'm looking at it from not rose-tinted glasses, but I'm looking at it from a positive opportunity, a way to say, right, we're in this state. What can I do? What else can I do? Looking for the opportunities that are coming my way and taking action on them. And I think that's very much my mentality at the moment.
Okay. So do you have plans for the next 6 months? Are you rolling with the climate as it changes, or have you got a plan? Or then, if I always say, if you've got a plan, great, but just be open to changing it, right? Especially in these climates. So, and as you said, things are changing very quickly. So it's about how quickly we can adapt, and it often helps to at least have that vision of where you want to get to in these final 6 months of the year.
Definitely. And I think it actually resonated with something that you said when I attended that workshop, was that it's great to set goals and targets and plans, but not be so rigid and to really say, no, I've got to do it. Yeah. You've got to be flexible. It may well change. You've got to go with what happens, and you can't be so rigid that you don't achieve anything to that extent.
I'd like to say I saw this pandemic coming, which is why I said that. But, but yeah, no. But
you're going to take credit for that one, I know. And I'm not trying to sort of big you up or anything like that. But it's true. It's very much. And somebody else has said to me recently that whole, it's all very well set in these plans, and I've got plans, I've got ideas. The idea of because as I said, I didn't quite go into it, but when I helped out J Osteopathy, somebody saw what I did, and then they said, "Oh, can we have a go?" And then I helped them, and then I helped somebody else. So that's kind of turned into this podcast, and I'm going to continue with that. And it might not necessarily be a generator of income, but it's certainly created a space for people to get to know me and see what I'm about and see what I can do for them and what I'm doing for other people. And because of that, it's coming back. I've this week I had some really, really good inquiries and some bookings, and I'm like, well, we're not even fully out of the lockdown yet, and I've got jobs kind of lining up already. So that was really a positive thing. So I want to continue with that. I want to build this podcast. I want to make it into something interesting. And also reaching out to people in my network. Other people are talking about collaborations and what can we do to help each other out, and all of those things I'm very much keeping an eye on and just seeing. And it's just taking the opportunity. It was like today, I can't say the details because it's a client, but there was a third party involved, and ended up going off on a tangent on another conversation. And now we're having a conversation about something that we might be able to do together. It's just, you've got to just open your eyes and see the opportunities. I think that's...
I totally agree. And it's really refreshing to hear. And, your attitude towards the whole, the opportunities like the podcast you've mentioned that started up, and that's giving you so much more exposure, something new that you would have done, that you're doing. I question, would you and I have been doing this interview now had COVID not hit? I don't know. Probably not, right? It certainly would have been about a different category, a different subject. It wouldn't have been about how you've managed your way through COVID, right? It would have been about what else you've been doing in your career or something like that. So, it's really, there are so many opportunities out there. And I talk to a lot of my clients and a lot of business owners out there, and there's still the money out there. there's still the clients out there. You know, if people can just step back a bit, and it's not easy at times, but it's definitely there. It's not all doom and gloom. Very, very far from it.
No, I mean, we have to be cautious. You know, there is a danger that, you know, as things start to lift, people are going to start running and start trying to play catch up. And I think there's a risk there, because a lot of people's cash flows have been on hold, and you might not have the cash to pay off, you know, debtors and creditors. You know, there's going to be, there's still a little bit of breathing space we need to do. I think that, you know, making sure that we're not overstretching ourselves, being mindful that clients or suppliers could well be struggling. So we can't start giving people a hard time just yet, you know.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because I think, you know, as you've said, you're different. You're a sole trader in that, but you know, there are a lot of people out there that have had, you know, great help from the government in different ways, whether it's furloughs, bounce back loans, you know, whatever it is, grants, and that's got some businesses through this time. You know, I think once the easing of lockdown really starts, then I think you've probably got about from 6 to 12 months, 6 to 18 months, there's going to be a real period there where a lot of businesses are going to really struggle, unfortunately, because maybe they're going to run out of that help that they had, but haven't replenished it as such, and they haven't really gone about starting their business in the right way and relaunching it. So, but yeah, hopefully I'm proven wrong on that, but
I think you're right, but I think it, like anything that's happened when you look at history and you know, things like that, the recessions and things like that, it will return, it will bounce back. I'm confident that people will, but people have just got to start opening their eyes and looking at the opportunities, and not be so rigid in what their plans are. You can't go back exactly to the way it was before. You've got to adapt. Was that improvise, adapt, and overcome? I think it was
there you go.
The film, isn't it? But I just, you know, I like to think that more people should be thinking that way, but I'm not so sure. You know, like this, maybe this message will get out and people would say, actually, look, do you know what? We've got to look for those opportunities.
Well, that's the point of these videos, you know, and I really appreciate you coming on, because this is what this is about. This is about showing the wider business community that, you know, there are businesses out there that have got the right mindset, business owners that have got the right mindset, doing the right things, taking the right actions, and not just rolling over during this period, right? So, which brings me on actually to one of, you know, we're coming to a kind of just wary of the time, but, you know, just a couple of deeper questions really. What have you learned about yourself during this time?
Ooh. That I guess, and it's horrible talking about this, because I like to think that I have a fair bit of humility, but I like to think that I've learned that my mindset has been key through this, and you know, and that strong mindset about, right, this is crap, what can I do? It's always been about what can I do, what can I do, what can I do, how can I help myself? There's a lot of stuff I can't control. Right, I can't control that, so I'm not going to waste energy worrying about it. I'm not going to worry about what's going on in the politics world. I'm not going to worry about what's going on. There's a lot of horrible stuff going on in the world at the moment, you know, and it's awful stuff. But I'm not going to get drawn into those debates. I have my own sort of feelings about, you know, those things.
Yeah.
But I can't control it.
Exactly.
I can control my world. I can control how I talk to my clients, and that for me is probably the biggest thing. That having that mindset to say, I can't control that. Right, I'm not going to waste energy on it. Let's fix what I can fix.
It's a fantastic mindset. It's a fantastic mindset, you know, and something that I try and instill into all of my clients and everybody I talk to, you know. And mindset, I've said right from the start of all of this, you know, mindset is absolute key. We've all struggled, you know, I've struggled with mine in the past. I still work on it every single day, right? So, but it's one of those things that, you know, if we get it right, it's a very, very powerful thing. Get it wrong, and it's powerful in the wrong way, and we can spiral out of control very quickly.
Been there. I've been there as well. I mean, that's a story for another time, perhaps. Yeah. But you know, my business came from something quite bad, and I think that has almost, although it's a horrible thing, it's given me a sense of purpose and a sense of mental strength to actually say, I can't not do anything. I have to do something, and I can. Yeah.
So where do you think your, so, it's great points that you've made there about what you've learned about yourself. What have you learned about your business that you now you've taken on that you just can't unlearn? That now you're just going to get that and run forward with it. What is there something you've taken from that?
Not to be as precious about the original idea. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, I was a photographer, but I could have ignored all the other skill sets that I've got from all sorts of life experiences and previous jobs and all that stuff. Yeah. And it's, although it could be quite painful to adapt something that you've put all your heart and soul into and then change the direction of it. So although originally it's all about the photography, well, I might have had to branch into videography, which is something that I never wanted to do. Right. Or a podcast that I never even dreamed of doing, or, getting into interviewing people or doing more social media stuff. It's about the adaptability. And I think that's another thing that I've learned about the business. I can't, if I was I'm sticking to my guns, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can't stick to your guns. You've got to be flexible and open to what's going on around you.
Exactly that. Look, Grant, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to have you on. Thank you for joining. And it's awesome to hear, because I know how much work you've done during these 3 months. I see you all the time on social media as well, right? You're really active. Like you said, your network has grown massively. So, to hear you say that already what you paid forward is starting to come back to you now. And it's not the reason you did it.
No,
and that's the great thing about it. You did it for the right reasons and the genuine reasons. But the fact is, I'm a strong believer, without going too deep, of the universe. It gives back when you ask for it, or when you do the right things, it also gives back, right? As long as you're doing it for the right reasons. So, on that, awesome. And I'm looking forward to keeping track of how well you progress over the next 6 months, mate, and further on.
Thank you very much, Tim. I've really enjoyed it, actually. I really enjoyed chatting. So, yeah.
Thank you. Good night.